Hi, I'm Sharon Farber, and this video is about mediumship and ethics. At first, I'm going to tell you the part that should be obvious, the types of breaches of ethics that are obvious and that people will only do intentionally when they want to take advantage of people. I'll do that quickly. Then we'll get to a number of ethical issues that some people need to be educated about because they have no idea that they're doing something that might not be quite right. So that'll be the larger part of this video. So basically with ethics, the idea is to do no harm, come from love, healing, good intentions to help people, and that's a beautiful thing, and do no harm. So the intentional breach of ethics are kind of obvious, and that would be pretending to do mediumship when you can't, or you're not, or faking it in any way. It could be pretending to do a specific type of mediumship. Maybe you're a regular medium and you want to do trance mediumship and you can't really do it and you're trying to do it anyway. That would be a breach of ethics. And it would be anything that takes advantage of a person. For example, seeing the widow every week for a paid reading that costs her a lot of money and isn't really helpful in order for the medium to make money, whereas the woman in loss would probably be better off using her resources to get therapy or counseling and learn how to deal with her grief. So those are really simple. It's basically being honest and using your integrity to do beautiful healing with mediumship. Things you might not know are not okay in mediumship. Number one, predictions. Predictions are more of a psychic kind of thing than mediumship. And my definition of mediumship, it's all about connecting with loved ones in spirit. And there aren't predictions anyway, because it's just about spending time with people's loved ones in spirit. So saying that anything is going to happen in the future, especially if it's an accident or a death, predicting something that is going to cause fear and anxiety for the sitter is unethical. Even if you're right, even if you feel like you need to tell them, predicting things, especially bad things, is unethical. Number two, telling people that the spirit people are lost or unhappy or unable to connect, or saying that they're stuck or something like that. If a medium is unable to connect with the spirit person that a sitter wants, then acknowledge that you're just not getting them. They're not coming through for some reason. Maybe it's an issue with the medium. Maybe they don't have a need to come through. There can be all kinds of reasons why somebody, a specific loved one in spirit, might not come through for your sitter. But to tell them that, oh, they're still working through their fears, or they're still healing, or they're not quite in the spirit world, or anything like that, I believe is highly unethical. In my belief, everybody who physically passes goes immediately to the spirit world. There is no getting stuck. There's no transition period. They know their past, and they're capable of coming through a medium. Sometimes people come through the same day that they passed or the next day. Sometimes they come through in 30 or 40 years. And telling somebody that their person is still working through their issues or hasn't gotten to the spirit world is terribly hurtful to the sitter, and it won't be healing or cause any benefit at all. So please don't do that. Approaching strangers with readings. A lot of people do that. They're so excited. Oh yeah, and I got somebody for my hairdresser. And then I told this person. If you're getting unsolicited connections with spirit people for your friends and family, great, tell them if they're open to it. And if they're not open to it, you'll find out. But if it's people you know well, you can say, hey, I connected with this person and I know it's for you, and feel free to try that. Approaching people that you don't know and don't have a relationship with because you feel that you're connecting with one of their spirit people is invasive, unethical, and not a good idea. If somebody isn't asking for reading, you have no idea whether they're open and receptive, whether this is part of their belief system. I feel like it's like having a chiropractor approach a stranger. Say you're in line to go into a movie theater and having a chiropractor walk up to you and say, oh, your spine's crooked. Here, let me give you an adjustment. And you would think that that was assault pretty much if somebody came over and tried to give you an adjustment. Or maybe it's a psychotherapist who sees somebody and says, you know, I feel like you really have some baggage from your past and you were sexually abused when you were a young child and you should work on that. Totally inappropriate if this person is not seeking out a therapist. So with mediumship, it might be tempting and exciting. And you might say, what should I do? What you do is learn boundaries, say no to spirit people who want to connect with you if you're not in a place where you're intending to connect with the spirit world. Don't give readings unless you have a sitter, which is somebody who wants you to give a reading and wants you to connect with their loved ones in spirit. Don't go approaching strangers and tell them, hey, I've got your person here, and try to give them a message. A lot of people will argue about that and talk about beautiful stories with good endings from that. And that is possible and it does happen. But overall, if spirit wants to connect with their person, they should use their ability, talk to their spirit person and get them to see a medium and set it up somehow. So don't approach strangers with readings. Be tactful with unborn children and suicides, and don't, if you feel there's an unborn baby and you're working with a private reading, that's fine. And you can talk about how this child, the spirit of the child is still around them. Don't feel compelled to point out that it's an abortion. The person, if they had an abortion, they're going to know that, and it might make them uncomfortable to have to talk about it. So don't point that out. If you're doing reading for more than one person, say it's a couple or a mother and a daughter, and you pick up an unborn child and nobody's saying, oh yeah, I understand, let it go, because it's possible that the other person, as opposed to the woman who had the unborn child, doesn't know about it. Maybe it's the partner who doesn't know there had even been a pregnancy. So be tactful and gentle. And if nobody's claiming an unborn child, don't point it out and say, but I know you had one. Just be sensitive and tactful and say, just move on. And with suicides, some people, there's a stigma with suicide. And if it's in a group setting, if you're doing a private reading and the person knows that somebody took their own life, that shouldn't be a problem. If you're in a group situation and somebody doesn't claim a suicide, that's another one of those, okay, I know I have this person here, and just tactfully with grace, walk away and say, I know this person is for someone and maybe you can contact me later, because some people pretend that suicides were not suicides and that the person passed another way. Another thing that you don't do in mediumship is tell the sitter about abuse, emotional, verbal, or sexual abuse. You may have a spirit person coming through and you may know that this person abused the sitter. And it's not okay to tell them that, because they might not know. They may have repressed this. This may be something they don't remember and they don't want to know about. You're not a therapist. You're not a counselor. So what I would do is say, I have this person here and they are coming through with an apology. They're acknowledging that they made poor decisions and they did things that weren't nice. And I realized that there was challenge and difficulty with your relationship with that person. So you can say things like that. And the person can get the healing from the reading, maybe for the forgiveness, the apology, and healing between both of them without you opening up a can of worms that you are not educated enough to follow through. So don't tell a sitter that you pick up abuse. If you're working in a group, don't be blatant and say, just be tactful and gentle and healing. And don't go into gory details. If somebody took their own life and you know that they passed by hanging, or there was a knife, or that they jumped or something like that, that's great. Tell them how they passed. And if somebody was in a hospital or somebody was murdered, whatever it is, go and tell the sitter tactfully and gently what you know, what you understand. That's fine. Don't go into bodily fluids. Don't talk about spurting blood or things that can be gory or upsetting. And this could be with an illness or a tragic passing. Just be gentle. While we're talking about suicides, the common consensus these days by the mental health community and ethical educated mediums is that we no longer use the phrase committing suicide. That is outdated. When we used to blame people for committing suicide, like they did a crime or murdered somebody, when now we see suicide as a mental illness, somebody who needed help, somebody who made a poor decision, and it is much kinder and more tactful and sensitive to talk about how this person passed by suicide, took their own life, was responsible for their passing, or anything like that, as opposed to saying that they committed suicide. It's still used, but it would be good if it was used less and less and then not used. Substance abuse and alcohol are things that happen, and you can address them with tact. You can talk about how you feel that this person was addicted. You can say that you feel like there was a substance abuse problem, or that somebody was an alcoholic. This is much more sensitive than calling somebody a drunk or a junkie. Just semantics. Be sensitive, be tactful, say things nicely. Speaking of saying things nicely, you are responsible for every word that comes out of your mouth. You are responsible for what you say. And back to what I said at the beginning, the first responsibility is to do no harm. So overall, we give what we get. You get information from the spirit world and you tell it to the sitter. But if it's not kind, if it's not healing, if it's not helpful, don't say it. I do not agree with the idea that whatever spirit says, that's what you have to say. That's not right. You might have a spirit who's not tactful, and they might say something that's hurtful. You might be misinterpreting and giving the wrong idea and hurting somebody. If it's not going to be helpful, supportive, loving, and healing, don't say it. You're responsible for everything that you say. Doesn't matter what your guides say or what you feel that spirit people are saying. You have the responsibility for what you say. So take that responsibility seriously and be sensitive, gentle, and do no harm. If somebody is sobbing during a reading, be gentle with them and say, "Are you okay? Would you like me to stop?" I have never had anybody who wanted me to stop, but if they wanted me to, I would. And you're giving them some space, some grace, and they will probably say something like, "No, I'm okay, keep going." But you just want to give them that space. And if you are giving a demo and there are other people there and somebody's falling apart, it might be sensitive for you to say, "Why don't we stop for now and I'll work with you privately at a later time," instead of having somebody who is open and vulnerable and that upset in a group situation. Probably be better off to do that personally later. Okay, anything else? No, know where your information is coming from. That's an important one. There's a big difference between doing mediumship and giving a psychic reading. However, people often do both. They might do them both intentionally within a reading, because people do psychic readings and mediumship, and clients want that, so that they do that. But sometimes when people are doing mediumship, they will accidentally lapse into a psychic information. So if you're giving a mediumship reading, and say you're connecting with somebody's spouse or a parent, and you give the information about them, and then you're giving a message or telling the sitter what you feel that they should do, and you accidentally go into psychic, that's unethical, because information that is supposed to be coming from a loved one is going to have more power and impact and influence on a sitter rather than information that might be coming from a psychic. And if you're a student and you accidentally slip into psychic when you're doing mediumship, that's fine, because you're a student and you're learning. And if you're aware that you're doing, you might say, I might be doing psychic. I might be picking that up intuitively with you. But a professional medium should know where their information is coming from. And if they shift into a psychic reading, they should acknowledge that and say, I have your person here, yada, da, 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 and then say, I am picking this up psychically. And that way the sitter knows where the information is coming from. Know that not all readings will work, and that for various reasons, sometimes the medium and a sitter isn't a good fit. So if a reading isn't working, don't beat your head against a wall and try to force it to work. Don't try to force the sitter to understand and accept information that they can't. If a reading doesn't work, stop after 10 minutes of no's, not 40 minutes, 10 minutes of no's, and say, this isn't really working. I don't think I'm the right medium for you, or I don't understand why this isn't working, but it isn't. And I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to give you your money back. At the Arthur Findlay College in Stansted, England, they have a sign on the wall that says, if the reading isn't going well, or you're not happy with the reading, say something within 10 minutes, and then they go give the money back. So there's nothing, it's not like you failed or you're not a perfect professional medium if you have a reading now and then that doesn't work. But the ethical thing to do is to acknowledge that it doesn't work and not blame the sitter or make excuses or pretend that it's working if it's not. And I think I missed something from earlier, and that was within the intentional breaches of ethics. So I'll just really quickly go back there. And that is, don't pretend you can do a type of mediumship that you can't. You might be able to do mental mediumship where you connect with people's loved ones in spirit, and that's great. But if you want to do a trance mediumship and it doesn't really work, say, okay, it's not working. Basically, I may have mentioned it before, just don't try to do things that you don't know how to do. If you can't do trance mediumship or it's not working, say so. If you're trying to do a regular mediumship reading and it's not working, say so. And there was one other thing there, pretending to giving messages. If you feel that you have a connection with a spirit person, you're giving a reading, and you know that the sitter really wants an apology, and you want to give them one. If you're not clearly sensing that the spirit person is telling you that they are apologizing for what they did or said or how things were, don't do it. You don't give a message just because you feel that the sitter wants it, or that it'll even be healing for the spirit, for either of them. Don't give any information you're not getting from spirit. Don't give a message that isn't coming from the spirit person, even if you think that the sitter really wants it or that it'll be healing. And I think that's it for now. So Do no harm. Remember that mediumship is connecting those on this side and the other side out of love. It is sacred healing work. It is powerful and beautiful and wonderful. So use your good intentions and do the best you can and help people heal and feel peace and love and closure. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if you like. Bye.